Dr. Jose Saldivar with another episode of the Way to College podcast. Lately, I think a lot of my guests are folks that are new to my network. People often ask me, my students particularly, they'll often ask, Sir, where do you get your guests? How do you find your guests? And so my guests are often folks that I find on the internet, folks that we have mutual connections with, or folks that are recommended to me. Today's guest is somebody that I encountered through social media. We have a number of connections, but this is our first time connecting. And so I was fascinated by her social media account and the work she's doing. She's another academic, and so much more, because I think one of the incredible things was the richness in her account and in what she is doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. So Hortencia, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience out there?
Claro que sí. Thank you so much, Dr. Saldivar, for that invitation. First and foremost, I live in Salinas, California, home to the excellent Costanoa Nation. I am of Wirarica ancestry, born and raised in the Sierra Madre in the state of Nayarit. So I am very proud to say that, que vengo de rancho, that I have my indigenous roots. I am an immigrant. I came to this country when I was a child. I grew up in that sort of transnational experience. I identify myself as a cisgender, queer, Mexicana, inmigrante, indígena. I'm a proud mother of three teenagers, ages 18, soon to be 17-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old daughter, and I have a German Shepherd. My title and accolades, we can talk about them as we move in our journey, but that's who I am.
Mm, Dr. Jimenez, thank you so much for joining me. And one, just congratulations on everything.
Gracias.
As I said, I've been following your work, and I saw that your dog was recently sick. And, is your dog okay?
Sí, thank you, mi bebé, my fur baby Sol, he's 7. And thank you, centering, I think, from an indigenous lens or animals or spirit animals. And I get tender. I'm a chillona, unapologetic. Yeah, I even wrote a poem about that. And Sol is, I'm not embarrassed to say, Sol is legally my emotional support pet. Um, and I just made it official last fall. I think it's important. We'll talk about mental health. So Sol, he's just entering my room. Oh my goodness. Sol is amazing. I'm a fur mom. Sorry, but
No, 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 don't apologize.
he just
I've
opened
got,
my door. I had it closed.
I've got quite a few pets myself, fur babies myself, and in fact, my oldest Fred is sitting back here snoring, and so if you see that I mute myself, it's probably because Fred is a little too loud. But no,
Same.
absolutely. So,
It's like,
Dr. Jimenez, I always ask my guests, the first question is, if you had to identify a starting point for your own educational journey, where is that starting point for you?
el rancho. El rancho. When I think about education, we can think about it like formal education, and we can also think about the ancestral wisdom that our ancestors have gifted us, and also our parents, our elders, their experiences. So when you say, where does it begin? It begins in the wound with my mom, sus canciones, sus dichos, sus enseñanzas, mi abuelita. But my really journey of formal education started the moment that I was separated from my family in Mexico uh, to come to this country. That's when it started. And I'm in my 40s. So it's been 40 years of a long journey of working hard and trying to reach for the stars, right? um, so yeah, that's where it starts.
How old were you when you were separated?
I was going to turn 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that transition like for you coming to the United States? What stands out to you?
You know, Let me close the door. Mi,
Mhm,
mi perro abrió la puerta. Qué precioso, bebé. To answer the question's a little bit difficult because of trauma. And
mhm,
that's why I'm very transparent and honest and vulnerable because we need to normalize mental health. And if it means me being vulnerable so that others can feel seen and heard and their experience is validated and to remind them that there's nothing wrong with them. Um, it has been through different types of therapy modality. When you say how was that, it was a trauma, and a trauma works differently for everyone in the brain. And for me, it has been very difficult to remember exactly how things unfolded.
mhm.
Um, it's como like when you're watching TV and it turns on and off. I get flashbacks. And so I do remember how I crossed. Of I crossed undocumented through the line. Um, I was separated from my grandmother. It was an uncle que me pasó. And I remember him saying, Mija, your name is going to be so and you're going to say that I'm your dad, and so is your mom. And you're a little girl. You don't know. You just know
Yeah.
that you're not with your family. And that, if you don't pretend you're sleeping, that I was kind of like told what to do and how to behave to cross. And I arrived to the US and I was raised by my paternal grandmother and aunt. And because I was undocumented, I couldn't go to Mexico and see my family. And I was only a girl, a small little girl. And I've been fortunate enough and privileged enough to have qualified under IRCA, the 1986 Immigration and Reform and Control Act. I grew up working in the fields. The fields were my daycare. And so
Mhm.
that's how I got my green card. And when I got my green card, I was able to go to Mexico and visit my family. And because I had my green card and because I was conditioned by my grandmother and aunt that I needed to further my education, that I had come to this country, they put a burden of responsibility that no little child should ever have. So my educational journey begins, from the moment of separation. And once I got my green card, those decisions were made for me. And I guess I've always carried my ancestral wisdom and strength and resiliency, and
Mhm.
I've made the best out of that. So I'm here. I take advantage of all the opportunities and the doors that close. I keep knocking on them and I keep looking for ways to pave the way for my family and for our community.
You know, one, thank you. Thank you for sharing that because I know that's, yeah, as you said, right, there's trauma with associated with that experience and so, but thank you for being transparent. Thank you for sharing that. I imagine as we go through your story and we talk about particularly the work that you do now and the teaching that you do now, is that I can't imagine your work has not been informed by many of those experiences, particularly with the students that you work with, right? So I'm eager to get into that. But you said right, it was a heavy burden to be placed, and a burden that shouldn't be placed on any young child. But this educational burden, knowing having this burden placed on you, do you remember what were your aspirations? Did you have aspirations for yourself about what you wanted to do, who you wanted to be?
Because English is my second language, um, I've struggled in school when I was in elementary school. All I knew is that I needed to further my education. Okay, I wanted to be a flight attendant. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer. Never did I say I wanted to be a professor or a teacher or, an educator. I just knew I just needed to further my education. So I didn't know since I was small what it was going to be. It was honestly in grad school and my doctoral program that's like, oh, this is the route I want to take now.
What was so you come to the United States, and where did you grow up? What was the
Mhm.
community like?
Yeah, proud resident of 831, Santa Cruz County, Monterey County. So I grew up in Watsonville, California. If you pass through Highway 1 or 101, you'll miss it if with the blink of an eye. But if you Google it, Watsonville, California is the capital of strawberries of the world. So I grew up, and I'm proud to say I grew up in a working class immigrant community. The label used at back then was Hispanic, you know, Latina, mainly Mexican, community farm worker, poor, you know. So I grew up honestly I grew up poor.
Mhm.
I grew up in a garage. It was like a shed, honestly. It was a shed. It was a shed. We gotta call it what it is. It was a shed that was
Yeah.
converted into a studio. Didn't even have a restroom. And that's where I grew up until my aunt was able to save enough money. She never married. She's single. So I've been raised by a very single, powerful warrior woman until she got a house. I've lived in Watsonville until I graduated from high school, and then I went for my undergrad and my master's to San Jose State University, worked in a nonprofit, and then from there I went to pursue my PhD.
I want to take a few steps back. Here you are, you're growing up in Watsonville, and in less than ideal conditions, right? I think for anyone, but you never lost sight. You never lost sight of just continuing with your education. College was going to be part of your path. Was there ever any doubt for you that you
Yeah.
wouldn't do that?
Um, to be really transparent, I was raised in a very traditional Mexican household where patriarchal oppression is the norm. And that really affected me. So yeah, at one point when I was a teenager, honestly, I maybe like con el novio. I was like, I didn't, it was so hard living under so much oppression, so much traditional gender oppression that, yeah, I don't want to say I lost sight of my education. It's just like I felt like I was suffocating. But that was the only instance. It's your teenage rebellious years, and I'm glad that I didn't end up leaving with el novio. Imagine now, probably not have had a formal education. I love kids, I would have been a
Hmm.
mother, but honestly, that was the only reason.
So how did you decide on San Jose State? Was it just because it was close, relatively close to you?
Yeah, so from my dad's side of the family, I have an uncle and he has three sons, and two of them have formal education. And my cousin JR, so shout out to my cousin JR, was the first in the family to earn his bachelor's and then his master's, and then my other cousin went to USC. And so it was my cousins who paved the way for me. And it was my cousin JR who was like, Prima, you gotta make sure that you take these courses in high school. And unfortunately, and I still say that, we need to hold our public school systems also accountable. My high school did not provide me the mentoring that I needed and that I should have received, so that I can continue on to the university. I didn't qualify to attend a UC because of the courses that I was taking. So I barely had the requirements to apply for a state university. And I say this with pride. I'm a proud product of the public school system, but at the same time, it had failed me because it didn't invest in students like me. And look
Mhm.
at me now, I am successful in many ways, even with the lack of that support from the beginning, from the counselors, from teachers, because you're not seen as a promised student. You're not a student in a you know, those what is it called, those program gifted programs. I was your
Mhm.
average student who barely passed math. And I only qualified to attend the local universities state. So San Jose State was the closest, and I wanted to be close to my family. interesting enough, though they raised me very traditional and very oppressive, you find ways to forgive and love them. So I wanted to be close. And also financially, of course, I did get financial aid and some grants again because I was privileged enough to be able to have my legal status. So that's how I ended up, it was convenient. And I went to San Jose State. I applied for the master's program while there. And I didn't know, even though you have a cousin or you have a family member who's pursuing higher ed, when you're the first in everything. So I didn't know how to navigate the process, So se me hizo fácil. It was easy for me, like, oh, I'll just apply for the master's program here. So I went from
Yeah,
undergrad sociology to a master's, and that was a culture shock. I was like, wait, it was so diverse undergrad, and then like I'm in the same building, different time at night, and all my peers are white. I'm like, where are the students of color? That's when I started realizing, oh my goodness, like higher ed is hard.
yeah. Wow. Thank you for sort of unpacking that for us, particularly your experiences in public ed and in high school and like I think, initially when I created the podcast, it was because a lot of the students that I was working with, I think there was this pressure to have everything figured out, to have, I'm going to major in this, and this is what I'm going to do for quote unquote the rest of my life. And so I wanted to share with these stories with them because I wanted them to see that very rarely do we have life figured out at 18, 19, even, 20, 30,
Even
40,
now.
right? Yeah, even now. And that life is kind of a series of ups and downs, and we are allowed to change our minds and to shift and pivot. But I think more, even just as important, is that what I've loved and learned from these stories is that the guests have had a variety of experiences in school, and so that even for those students that feel like my school didn't invest in me, or my school didn't see the promise in me,
Mhm.
there are people just like me who have found success, who have made, gone to college, or who have done this or doing that in spite of maybe some of
Yeah.
the lack of investment. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know why, but I think about that often. I think there is a level of resentment,
Mhm.
Spirit says it's not good to hold resentment, but I'm not ready to let it go.
Well, and I'm sure you draw strength from it, right? You draw
Yeah,
some,
I think that's what it is.
yeah,
Es el
absolutely.
coraje. Es el
Yeah,
coraje, pero no like in a bad way. It's like, how do I
yeah.
change that so that it doesn't happen to other students? And, I always share this experience with my students and say, success is not measured by what like white supremacy values, say it is. It's like, are we fulfilled? Are we happy? Does it align with their values? Yes, these external accolades, yeah, they do matter at one point for certain things, but I have no problem being transparent with my students and saying, like, your grades do not determine, your success, where you come from, your zip code, your social identities. Yes, they matter in terms of the challenges that you will face, the barriers, but we shouldn't let that be our impediment. That should be our superpower.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I love that. You were getting into, you go to San Jose State. And before we continue, just one question. What did you major in, and
Mhm.
how did you decide on your major?
Yes. So I'm a sociologist, and I'm a sociologist from undergrad, master's, and PhD. That's how much I love sociology. And that is the passion I try to transmit to my students. I fell in love with sociology because it gave me the language to understand my life. And that is powerful. That's powerful. No me importa lo que diga la gente. Like when you have a language and vocabulary to understand systems, to understand your family, to understand the community and society, it's liberating, it is empowering, it is healing. And so sociology helped me understand who I was. Who was this brown woman, this immigrant, this teenager growing up in the US? Why was she separated from her family? Why is she going through this? Why is her family, right? And so having that language, and I found love, and it unveiled a different way of seeing the world and seeing society. pues I'm sure you can see like me fascina, me encanta. And so I do regret not getting like a specialization or going for a master's in something else. Again, I think it has to do also with the lack of mentoring. So
Hmm.
so fácil, I thought it was easier. Okay, go just go get do a master's in sociology. I thought social work, but I felt social work was more limiting and
Hmm.
sociology was a little bit more broad because I didn't want to be just a social worker. So that's why I went in for the master's in sociology. And my thesis, what I began to specialize was on immigrants, just like me, and activism. I have a track record of being involved in the immigrant community since, since my undergrad and master's. So it's been over 20 years. And so my thesis focused on the immigrant community. And then when I went to pursue my PhD, same thing. I focus on the immigrant community and gender and leadership and Latina immigrants.
Thank you. And I want to get back to the point that you said about when you chose sociology, that it gave you the language to talk about systems. And I don't know that I've shared this on the podcast, but I think I would describe myself in high school as I was a good student, and I think I was fortunate. I had right identified early as gifted or whatever, but I was a good student in that I was really good at paying attention and following rules and not causing trouble because I was afraid of my
Mm,
father and my right disappointing my parents. But
mhm,
I remember going to college and all of a sudden I understood why I saw the world a certain way or why things were. And so all of the questions that I had that I've always had, and it felt like I was, I always adding questions to this, I don't know, to my brain or whatever, but all of these questions about the world. Well, why is this? Why is that? Why do I see this a particular way? And I remember, yes, like, oh my God, college gave me all of this, the these terms and this language and helped me understand systems. And all of a sudden I looked at the world a very different way. And it was incredibly powerful and incredibly empowering.
yeah.
And so thank you. Thank you for saying that because I think sometimes we get lost in the utility of college and that, oh, you go and you earn a degree and,
Yeah.
earning power and stuff. But I think for a lot of people, for a lot of young people, for a lot of people of color, for a lot of immigrants, it gives us access to the language and to the terms and to understanding systems that I think otherwise you have very limited access to.
Exactly. Y esa es la riqueza más grande. That's the best richness, right? I tell students, especially now, you do not need to have formal education to be wealthy, to be rich, or if you want to like accumulate wealth. There's so many different ways you can do that, but an education gives you the consciousness, the critical skills, to look at society and systems and understand your life and be a better human. So yeah, we're not here because of the money.
Exactly. So thank you for that.
I
Graduate school.
Let me just share when I tell
Yes.
this to my kids often and my students. I could have lived a very cushioned life. I could have been retiring in my 50s. I worked, in the fields that I from the fields to fast food in high school to nonprofit work, and I ended up working for the government. I worked for the Santa Clara County Superior Court. I was a clerk. I was I must have been 20, earning well. I could have moved up, you know, and there were a lot of opportunities, but I also saw how the system was not helping or how limited I was in helping the community. And I was in my 20s, early 20s, so I had to make a decision and I didn't feel like I was doing enough. I was
Mhm.
earning well for my age and I was getting my master's, I think, at that moment or undergrad. And I'm like, I'm at the crossroads. Do I continue here and move up the ladder and earn well? Or do I follow my heart? And my heart and my passion has always been the community. And that's when I left working for the government to work in the nonprofit. And I have never looked back. But I do think now, like, wow, I was young and I always aligned my values, right, with my actions. And we say that easily, but Come on, I was 20 or 21. ¿Quién no quiere hacer dinero?
Yeah, I
No,
know, absolutely.
Elena, I mean, honestly, I've probably been retiring like 10 years and working for the government in Santa Clara County. My goodness. Pero look at me. I'm a professor, an academic.
Well, so then how did we get there? How did we go from you continue at San Jose State, you get a master's degree in sociology. What came next for you?
Yeah. So, I was working in from when I moved from the government to work in the nonprofit. I was doing my master's, and nonprofit work is very rewarding. It's beautiful work. It's very taxing to your spirit and your body and your mental health, especially after 9/11. And so I got burned out. I got burned out. I did experience a lot of ageism because I was young. I was in my 20s and I was even moving up in the nonprofit from an associate to a director of a program. And I experienced a lot of ageism during that interim that we were having a lot of changes in the in the organization. And I think I just got burned out and I wanted to shoot for the stars. And I'm like, I'm ready to leave the community and shoot for the stars, which was pursuing a PhD. And I've said this in other interviews, and I'm not embarrassed anymore. I applied to 10 UCs in California. I had nonprofit work. I had a 3.5 GPA. I had a master's. My GRE scores were low, embarrassing low. And I say this in full transparency because this is how systems are set up for us to fail. The gatekeeping. I had everything except the scores.
Mhm.
All the schools rejected me. All of them. No school accepted me for a PhD program. I was 24, I think. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. This is hard. When you're navigating how to apply, you go through the whole process and then you get 9 or 10 schools that are rejecting you and you're paying, like whatever.
Yeah.
At that time was $50 per application, quién sabe. It was a blow. It was devastating. The imposter phenomenon, the self-doubt, the shame. I honored all of that and said, Orale, well, that's when I started teaching. So I'm proud to say that I have over 20 years of experience teaching. I started teaching when I was 24 at the local community college in San Jose City College. And at that time, it was a National Hispanic University, a private liberal arts university. So I taught sociology and ethnic studies. Dije, okay, well, what am I going to do? I have everything. I guess I'll just prepare for the GRE again. And so I waited that year. I started teaching and I applied the next year. I applied to some of the same schools, but this time I applied out of the state. And it's out of the state that accepted me. Arizona, University of Arizona and UT Austin. I ended up going to UT Austin without a package, without a financial package. So I had to advocate for myself once I was over there. But we can talk about that, even that journey. I strategically decided that I wanted to go to UT Austin. Once I visited the campus, I thought about long term, like this institution. It was a sociology, a PhD in sociology. They weren't offering me any funding. I'm a former McNair scholar, so I got in-state tuition, and it was through the Center for Mexican American Studies. So shout out. If it wasn't for the center and Dr. Limon, who's anthropologist, advocated, and that's when I learned. He's like, I'm upset that the sociology department keeps, admitting students of color, but no funding. Y yo como, what does this mean? Like the politics, right? You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, damn, like I'm in the middle here. I'm advocating, and he's mad that they're not giving me funding. ¿Qué hago? He's like, we're gonna fund you for 2 years, and then ahí te las buscas tú después. I was like, okay. So I got funding through teaching. So I taught in the Chicano studies. That's how I paid my and student
Yeah.
loans, of
Yeah.
course. I can't survive with the TA assistantship. And that's how I was able to move through my PhD program through my teaching assistantship and then later through research fellowships and eventually a dissertation fellowship. but it was a constant advocating for yourself and and looking at the inequities and looking at lack of representation. I know it's that's another conversation, like just the doctor program.
Having been through what you've been through in terms of higher ed, in terms of, you know, the doctoral work and the doctoral program. And I ask this because I think I did my PhD at UT también. Um, and I did it, I think I was better informed about undergrad and had very little guidance in terms of my graduate work and where I was going to go and what I was going to do. And so in hindsight, I would have made some major decision, different decisions. In hindsight, looking back on your experience,
Hmm. Hmm.
what would you have done? Would you have done do anything differently as you pursued the PhD?
Advocated for more funding. Being unapologetic, being a brown woman, being pregnant, I really want to center that because um when I pursue my PhD, it was a life transition. I was getting married and I wanted to be a mother too. And why do I have to choose being a student, a doctoral student, and being a mother? And I'm sure you know, and there's this unwritten rule, unwritten expectation, unwritten norm that when you pursue a PhD, you're either not married or you're not really in a relationship. Or if you're in a relationship, it's not going to intervene with your academics, like family, like academia is that. And so now that I think about it, it's like, wow, I've always been a rebel. Not that I like now I embrace it. I was like, oh, I always went against the grain, against these norms, not intentionally. I just been true to myself. And so I'm like, I want to be a mother, so I'll be a student parent. And when you say like in hindsight, I would have not been ashamed
Mm,
of being uh, um, a Latina who got pregnant while pursuing her PhD because of the stereotypes, the
mhm,
institutional violence that I had to go through. And when I say institutional violence, the microaggressions, because we got to name them, they're violent. They impact our mental health. So I got comments from my white professors, my white feminist sociologists who would say, Hortensia, you're pregnant? You're pregnant again? Are you going to finish? Um, and the audacity of Hortensia to have three kids while pursuing her
mhm,
PhD. Not only did she have one, she had three. So I had my son while I was doing my comprehensive exams. My daughter Itzel was born during my dissertation research phase. So allá iba yo with my little, sling and my two kids doing research, taking the pack and play to the university library, going to office hours with my professors, taking my kids, being pregnant. And I'll never forget, I don't know what scholar, it's a Chicana scholar who theorizes about the brown body. And that's how I saw myself. Like, here's this brown woman and her big belly. Like, what the fuck? She's taking this fucking space. I didn't see myself at that moment. I was
yeah,
hiding. I was hiding my second pregnancy for the longest time. That's what academia does. It shames you. And I regret that.
yeah,
I regret that. Not feeling more empowered. At that time, there wasn't a lot of support for student parents like there is now.
yeah.
So I regret that. Not feeling more empowered, not taking up more space. But I actually did take the space. And then I defended my dissertation with my third child. I was 7 months pregnant with Elena. She's wearing a black polka dot dress with white polka dots, defending her dissertation. It took me years. I was like, I did that. Like, wow, like the audacity, right? To like not only have one, two, but three kids, and then she's defending her dissertation with a 7 month belly.
Yeah.
Damn, so that's a big part of my doctoral journey. And so because of all that, I did research on student parents.
You're one, I'm sorry you had to go through that. You had to experience that. But I think Um, Two, my hope again with this, with your story, sharing your story, is that there are other students that maybe see themselves in you, but also see promise and hope because you were able to do it. You were able to do it. You were able to advocate for yourself. Though you wish you would have advocated more, right? And but
Mhm.
I think even in your story, we often when we talk about our first generation students and students that are going through this for the first time and not knowing any better, I think sometimes what gets lost in that, and feel free to agree or disagree, but I think there is some power in that because we also don't know we can't do
Mhm.
something. I um, it sounds like the rhetoric, the expectations of the university and of the doctoral program was, Hortencia, you're not supposed to get pregnant. Well, damned if I mean I'm gonna get and 3 kids later, right? And here I am, and I'm defending, and I've done all of this work. I've done what you've asked me to do, and doing it sort of without regard for sort of those expectations. Because this
Yeah.
is this was for me. This was what I needed to do for me, right?
Yeah. And it comes at a cost to your mental health and the trauma that
Mm-hmm.
stays in your body, because I'm still healing. I'm still healing from all that.
Hortensia, after your PhD, what came next for you?
I wanted to come back to the community. I knew that. I went to,
Why?
both.
Wait, why? Why did you want to come back?
So we both went to UT Austin, right? And UT
Mm-hmm.
Austin is a top research school. It trains you to do research, to go and teach at the university or do research. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to be close to my family. So for me, family has always been one of my core values. My abuelita was aging. She's my paternal grandmother, the one who raised me in this country. And I think I had postpartum depression, of course, of course. Like I'm in UT, I'm at Texas, I'm away from family, getting a PhD, raising 3 kids, no help, nothing, of course I was gonna get depressed. And so I was like, I want my kids to be close to their great grandma, to their bisabuela. For me, that was the most important thing. I knew that. My heart, my spirit, I was like, the universe, the ancestors, creator, God will align the job. So you would think, really? You made a decision based on family? That's right. Unapologetic? That's right. Yo dije, algo va a salir because I believed in myself, right? I was like, algo va a salir, soy chingona, algo va a salir.
Yeah.
So did I have dreams of like, yeah, go teach somewhere else? Yeah, but at the cost of not having my children be close to their great grandmother? I dije, no. So for me, that's what it was. Be close to the family, and by default, that means being in the community. And so we relocated from Texas to Salinas. My kid's dad is from Salinas. I'm from Watsonville. So I ended up in Salinas, and here, this is where I am now. And it's only 25 minutes away from my grandmother. She already passed away. I have zero regrets. Zero. If I were, something to happen to me, I'd be like, I have lived a fulfilled life that has been aligned with my core values. My kids got to see their great grandmother. She passed away 3 years ago. It's going to be 3 years on March. My grandma got to see her sus bisnietos. My grandma loved me as a daughter. So that was the best gift.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was healing the intergenerational trauma with my kids, my abuelita, her lineage, my lineage. And I said, a job will come and here in the community. I don't care if I have to work part-time until there's a full-time job. My dream, honestly, was like to teach at San Jose State. I was like, I todavía pienso, I was like, it would be nice to go and teach at the university, my alma mater, maybe when I become an empty nester. So I was like, there's CSUMB Monterey nearby, there's Santa Cruz, there's San Jose State, there's 3 universities by, and there's a lot of community colleges. I'm like, algo va a salir. I can work in a nonprofit. I'm a hustler. I was like, I already had a plan. I'll work part-time as a professor, And then I became a certified health coach. I became a certified fitness instructor because I was like, I've always been into fitness. I love food. I love cooking. Y dije, okay, I'll teach part-time. I'll do workshops in the community for free. And maybe I'll have like classes at the local gym, Dije, and then at that point, my kid's dad, he's the one who worked full time. Dije, we should be able to do that, until a full-time job comes, around. Yeah, so I was a chicken without a head for like 4 years, teaching in different universities and community colleges. I taught at Hartnell, CSUMB, Monterey Bay, and Pacific Coast College at one point for like all these. I was like a full-time professor with a part-time salary for like 4 years until the dream job opened up, which was here, Hartnell College. You're like, yes, a dream job to work at the local community college, a tenure track position. That's not often. And I got the job. Of course, I got the job. So why I prepare myself. I prepare myself to earn that position. And I've been in Hartnell since 2010. Up in 2014 part-time, and from 2014 up until now full-time. And I'm tenured.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yes, yes.
So, one, it sounds like, yes, everything aligned, right? The job aligned for you. One of the things that really intrigued me about your Instagram post, your social media page, is I follow a lot of academics, and a lot of times a lot of the posts are about the research, they're about the work that they're doing. Um, Yours was different
Different.
because you highlighted your own fitness journey, you've highlighted your cooking and and diet and how important the diet is, but also our relationships with our diet. So tell me about why you decided to highlight this work.
Yes. Oh, that's been a journey. You already know that how I started, why I have my certification as a health coach and a fitness instructor because I was working part-time as a lecturer, right? And I was like, like you hustle. So it's like work part-time at the university, community college, and I have these side jobs. And always been involved in the community. And then COVID happened, right? Y dije, ¿y ahora qué hago? Like, I can't volunteer, I can't do stuff. I had a Facebook account and I would rarely would post on Facebook. Hi, did I venture onto Instagram? It's COVID. COVID made me do that. But and look, it's been 5 years. It's been a 5-year journey. And I opened an account. And as a good researcher, I'm like looking, okay, one, how do I use Instagram? How do I use social media? And then I'm like, what am I going to be? That's when like thinking, okay, I'm an academic, but I'm a health coach and I'm a mama and I like cooking. It took me about, I'm not going to lie, over maybe 3 years to start feeling comfortable with my multiple identities. When I
Mhm,
started off, I was like, okay, health coach, maybe don't put a lot of academic. I was figuring things out, on
mhm,
social media. And I noticed that there was a lack of representation of Latina health coaches. It wasn't my scholarly academic role. It was more the health coaching. And I was started doing research, looking at the hashtags like, wait, where are Latina, where are women of color health coaches? And then the ones that you find are saying very honestly harmful, toxic messages about food, about body image. I was like, no, I don't like this. So then I found the undieting niche or the undieting sector. I was like, this is my area. This is it. This aligns with who I am, where I stand in my values. And it has been women of color, specifically Black women, who have led a lot of these conversations about racial justice as it connects to food, folks in larger bodies. And that's how I started getting more focused in that area. So then I said, okay, sociologist and health coach from a non-diet approach. How do I bring in sociology into my health coaching? And that's how I did it. And then later it's like, okay, but you're Mexican, you're an immigrant. How do you bring in cultura? How do you bring in identity? And that was scary. That's scary. because it has taken me a lot to be who I am now on social media. 5 years to be, honestly, I feel like unapologetic now, but it's been a very nerve-wracking, scary journey because as I grow in my confidence, I also that also means being more unapologetic about what I say, and say things that people haven't heard or don't see those connections or don't see those intersections. I'm really challenging narratives about body image, uh, and bringing in racial and social justice. I'm bringing in work that is not popular, it's not sexy. Like, like who wants to heal your relationship with food and body image from a non-diet approach? Stop doing diets. ¿Quién quiere escuchar eso, right? I was like, okay. So it's been an upstream battle. It's going against the current. Y dije, ay,
Yeah.
Hortencia, wait. Actually, this has been all your life. So, when you come to that point, you're like, oh, wait, I've been doing this all my life, right? So it's like, okay, well, it's just otra cosa, that I have to embrace. And so I'm proud to say that now I have positioned myself. And I say position through hard work, through dedication, in my physical community and on social media as a leading expert in the undieting space, as a woman, as a queer woman of color, as a Latina, as a Mexicana inmigrante, really challenging people to think beyond just food, beyond just body, and look at these intersections. So now, who the fuck is this person? Like, wait, she's a professor, she's an academic, es doctora, but wait, she likes to work out. She's a health coach. Wait, she has a mom, she has a dog. So now it's like I use, intersectionality. I use
Yeah.
theories. Now I don't, that's when you say like I'm different from other academics because I want to be relatable. I want people to know that education doesn't just come from the ivory tower. We need to make this accessible, digestible. And by saying that doesn't mean that we're um speaking less intelligent of our community. Is about equity. I
Yeah.
strongly believe that my platform is about equity. It's about access, and it's about fully embracing our multi-dimensionality of who we are as individuals. So many people on social media, experts told me, focus on your niche. You're a professor, just education. You're a health coach, just that. And I
Yeah.
got to, and I tried. I tried for 2 years, 2.5 when I was figuring that out. And I'm like, fuck this shit. Like, I can't just be this because I'm all of this. Soy
Yeah.
una mamá, soy una doctora, soy a community. I'm all of this. And it's okay to show up in all these dimensions. And why do I have to not show off my love for fitness? And I actually started doing this last year because before I wouldn't post it. I would post it on my stories here and there. And people are like, Dr. Jimenez, like, can you post your workouts? That's why I post them on my stories because people get motivated, especially otras mujeres. And so then being an academic, of course, I know that literature on the fitness industry and the toxicity. So now, what am I doing now? I'm going to start sprinkling in without having to same frameworks, just bringing in really way. Like instead of saying like, yeah, I'm proud to say I am a gym rat, but not the toxic gym rat, right? So even reframing, it's a reframing of concepts. And I think that's very liberating and empowering. And so I want everyone who goes into my account to see themselves represented in one way or another, or at least feel inspired that you don't have to conform to what people say or fit a certain mold or certain box. Because that's what I teach. And I was
Yeah.
I was teaching this and I was being a hypocrite on social media, hiding all these identities. And then slowly throughout the years, I'm like, no, soy todo esto. And I do get people who reach out on my DMs and they're curious, some academics or doctoral students. Hey, I'm interested, I'm curious. And I'm like, are you curious intellectually or you're curious as
Yeah.
a man? Like, like what are you like intellectually? I need to know, like, just be clear,
Yeah.
right? Like, what was your intention? Because they're like, what frameworks do you use? I'm like, I mean, and I say it, nepantlera. I mean,
Mhm.
and I'll sprinkle some of this stuff in my whenever I want to, if I want to be geeky or academic about it, like I don't want to center that. That's not the intention of my platform to center my intellect, to center my scholarly. I do it in a different way. No sé, I don't know if that.
Yes, no, it does, and I think like I appreciate the way you've done it. I appreciate the way you've done it because I think it's important, right, that we, we're complex individuals, right? And so we are inhabiting these personalities, these identities. And so to say like, oh, this is, and I get it for some of us that are in academia that like, I'm just going to post about my research because everything else is private. I don't want people to know. But then I think for some of us, for somebody like you, right, the work that you were doing so much, so many other things that were also part of your public persona, right? The health coaching, the fitness coach, all of these things are also part of who you were publicly. And so sharing that, I think,
Yeah,
and I think, yeah, I think people are looking for that. People, I think there is a space for that. So good for you. Congratulations on that work.
gracias. And like I said, and I just want to just accentuate this. It hasn't been an easy journey. Social media is not for the weak. It's
No.
not. People think it's easy to show up, to create content. Like there's some posts that when I click post, my heart starts beating. I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack. Well, I actually do have one. I'll have a panic attack. I'll start sweating and because you don't know how the post is gonna land, especially if it's a post that is a little bit more just forward, more, just unconventional narratives, and the backlash on my DMs, like the criticism, y antes me afectaba, I would say like 2 years ago, it would bring me down, I would cry, and now I'm like, "Fuck it." Like, digo, they don't know me, like, now I get upset, but then I'm like, "Okay, don't let that negative energy get to you, you continue to be true
Yeah.
to yourself."
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like, "Thank you," like, I feel seen, I feel validated, and that just for me is the fuel that I need to keep going. So it's not easy. And this is not for me. The work I do has never been about me. It has always been for the community. Yes, it's about me because it's stuff that I enjoy doing. It's always like how can I learn? How can I can make this a better place, for
Yeah.
our students, for our community. And I think that social media is beautiful in that sense. It connects you with beautiful people like yourself. And I've made genuine, true friendships in on social media and I've met colleagues. It's been beautiful. And then there's the ugly side, right? But if we nurture and protect our energetic bubble, we can keep going.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Hortencia, thank you and congratulations on all of the work that you're doing. Thank you for the content that you're also creating, right? I think that is very powerful. Hortencia, as we transition out, any final words that you'd like to leave our guests, our listeners with?
Always be yourself, be unapologetic of who you are, be proud of your background, where you come from. Center community, center your family in the work that you do and the research you do. No matter if other people don't believe in yourself, don't believe in your vision, don't believe in your research, they can't see it. That's okay. As long as you feel it in your heart and your spirit, es lo más importante. Because if you do not hold on to that, how are you going to survive in higher ed with all these challenges? Because that hasn't been easy. So be true to yourself always. Don't lose yourself. Don't abandon yourself in a relationship, at work, and even for our kids. And I mean it in the best way
Mhm.
is there has to be radical self-love for ourselves and how we can't love humanity if we don't love ourselves. There's so much self-hatred.
Mhm.
And lastly, go to therapy. We didn't talk about mental health, but go to therapy, Western therapy, somatic, ancestral, ceremony. whatever aligns with your spirit, and you can, move in different paths throughout your life. But take care of your mental health is very important, because these systems are meant for us to break us down, and we got to protect our spirit and our mind and our body, right? A whole mind spirit connection. And the last thing, I didn't haven't made it public, but you're gonna be one of the first people. I'm writing a poetry book that will be released in March,
Oh, congratulations.
late February, early March. So I'm writing a poetry book, by Alegria Publishing. I'm in my final stages. I'm gonna have a poetry book launch in my community on March 21st, but I'm hoping that the book will be available for pre-sale or sale at the end of February, early March.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, so as we conclude, make sure you send me any of those details, anything you'd like me to share in the post. But again, Dr. Jimenez, thank you so much. Thank you for your story. Thank you for visiting with me and for sharing and again for being so transparent with me and with all of our guests out there.
No, pues muchas gracias, Dr. Saldivar. Thank you so much for reaching out, for the opportunity to be in community with your audience, to share a little bit about my life. And I'm a DM away for anyone who resonates with my experience, needs any advice. That's what we're here for. And I really mean it. Send me a DM, and I'm here.
I
Gracias.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. This concludes another episode of the Way to College podcast. Thank you to my guests. Thank you to our listeners and viewers out there. Please remember to subscribe, rate, follow, all of that good stuff. And don't forget to share the podcast with one other person. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And we'll see you again soon. Bye bye.
Nos vemos.